You've seen lightning 1,000 times, but I promise you've never actually seen it. Let me show you why. Lightning McQueen. One blinding flash, one crack of thunder, and it's gone. It looks like the simplest thing in the world. But that single flash is really the final step of a hidden chain reaction, one that's been building for seconds inside the storm, completely invisible to you, until it explodes across the sky in a fraction of a second. It all starts up here. Picture a storm cloud as a giant battery, slowly charging itself up. And the way it charges is shockingly ordinary. It is the exact same trick you have done 100 times yourself, rubbing a balloon on your hair and sticking it to the wall. Lightning is just that trick scaled up into a monster. Deep inside that cloud, it is freezing cold. Violent winds, called updrafts, hurl tiny ice crystals and soft little hailstones up and down, smashing them into each other millions and millions of times. And every single collision rubs off a tiny bit of electric charge, exactly like the balloon stealing charge from your hair. Here is the clever part. The light, tiny ice crystals end up positive and float to the top of the cloud. The heavy hailstones end up negative and sink to the bottom. So the cloud quietly splits in two, a positive top and a powerful negative base hanging underneath it, like the bottom of that charged balloon. And that negative base is so strong it pushes on the ground far below. It shoves the negative charge in the earth away, leaving the ground directly under the storm strongly positive. Now you have an enormous voltage between the cloud and the ground, millions of volts, and the only thing standing in the gap is thin air. Now, normally, air is a fantastic insulator. It really does not want to carry electricity. That is the only reason the charge keeps stacking up instead of quietly leaking away. But it cannot hold forever. The pressure climbs higher and higher until, finally, the air gives up and snaps. And this is the part almost nobody has ever noticed. A faint, ghostly channel of charge punches out of the cloud and starts creeping toward the ground. Not in one smooth line, but in tiny jumps, each about the length of a car. It forks and branches like the roots of a tree, blindly feeling for the easiest path down. Scientists call it the stepped leader. When this invisible feeler gets close to the ground reaches back. Tall objects, a tree, a flagpole, a skyscraper, even a single person standing alone in a field shoot faint sparks of their own straight up into the air, stretching to meet it. Then they touch. The circuit slams shut, and everything reverses in an instant. A colossal surge of electricity blasts back up the channel, and that upward explosion is the brilliant flash you actually see. So every lightning bolt you have ever watched, the bright part was traveling up, not down. Wait, the bright part goes up? Up. I told you you'd never really seen it. And it is fast, ridiculously fast. This return surge races upward at up to a third of the speed of light, about 100,000 kilometers every second. So, with all due respect to a certain cartoon race car, I'm Speed, Lightning McQueen tops out around 300 kilometers an hour. A real bolt would lap him 1,000,000 times before he even finished shouting ka-chow. Cramming that much energy through a thin channel of air does something insane to the temperature. For a few millionths of a second, the air inside a bolt hits around 30,000 degrees Celsius. That is roughly 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. A thread of air, for an instant, becomes the hottest thing for miles in any direction. 5 times hotter than the sun. Yeah, let's not go stand under that one. And that searing heat is exactly where thunder comes from. The air gets so hot, so fast, that it violently explodes outward, then collapses straight back in. The boom you hear is not the lightning itself. It is the sound of air slamming back into the empty tunnel the bolt carved out of the sky. Here is a trick you can use tonight. Light reaches your eyes instantly, but sound crawls along far slower. So count the seconds between the flash and the rumble, then divide by 3. 3 seconds means the storm is about 1 kilometer away. The bigger the gap, the further away, and the safer you are. And this is not rare. Right now, as you watch this, lightning is striking the earth about 44 times every second. That adds up to roughly 1.4 billion bolts a year. And here is the twist. Most of them never touch the ground at all. They flash hidden deep inside the clouds, where you can barely even see them. And there's one spot on Earth that takes this to the extreme. Over Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, the conditions are so perfect that lightning flashes almost every single night, sometimes for 9 or 10 hours straight, up to 300 nights a year. Sailors have used it as a natural lighthouse for centuries. Locals simply call it the everlasting storm. And here is the strangest twist of all. Above the biggest storms, lightning doesn't only go down to the ground, it also fires straight up into space. Giant bursts of red light called sprites and blue jets leap dozens of kilometers above the clouds toward the edge of the atmosphere. For years, pilots reported them and nobody believed them until cameras finally caught them in the 1990s. And lightning doesn't even need a rain cloud to form. When a volcano erupts, it blasts out a towering plume of ash, and all those tiny rock particles grind against each other and build up charge, exactly like the ice crystals inside a thundercloud. The result is a terrifying storm of lightning crackling through the ash and smoke. Scientists call it a dirty thunderstorm, and it is one of the most violent and spectacular sights on the whole planet. And then there's the one even scientists still can't fully explain. For centuries, people have reported glowing balls of light, about the size of grapefruit, drifting silently through the air during storms, sometimes floating right through a closed window before vanishing with a pop. It is called ball lightning, and it is so rare and so unpredictable that we still are not completely sure how it forms. And each strike is brutally powerful. A typical bolt carries about 30,000 amps of current. The socket in your wall? Around 15. So one lightning strike is thousands of times stronger than everything in your house combined, all unleashed in less time than a single blink of your eye. You have definitely heard that lightning never strikes the same place twice. It is a nice saying. It is also completely wrong. Tall buildings get hit again and again. The Empire State Building in New York is struck around 20 to 25 times every single year. Lightning never strikes twice? Yeah, that one is just plain wrong. And remember that myth about never being struck twice? One man shattered it completely. Roy Sullivan, a park ranger in Virginia, was struck by lightning 7 separate times across his life and survived every single one. And being hit is not always a death sentence. Around 9 out of 10 people who are struck actually live, though many are left with strange feather-like scars where the currents spread across their skin. And do not assume you are safe just because the sky above you looks clear. A bolt can shoot sideways out of the top of a storm and strike the ground more than 15 kilometers away, in bright sunshine with no rain in sight. People call it a bolt from the blue, and it is exactly why a storm that looks far away can still reach out and hit you. Lightning even leaves souvenirs behind. When a bolt slams into sandy ground, it can get hot enough to melt the sand instantly, fusing it into a hollow tube of rough glass, frozen in the exact path the lightning took. It is called a fulgurite. Basically, it is lightning you can hold in your hand. But lightning is not only destructive. Every bolt is secretly feeding the planet. The air is packed with nitrogen that plants desperately need, but simply cannot use on their own. A lightning bolt is powerful enough to rip those nitrogen molecules apart, and the rain then washes the pieces down into the soil as a natural fertilizer. So in a strange way, the very same flash that can split a tree also helps the whole forest grow. And here is one last twist, perfect for our race car. If a storm catches you outside, one of the safest places to be is inside a car. But not because of the rubber tires. That is a myth too. It is the metal shell. It guides the electricity around the outside and straight into the ground, leaving you perfectly safe inside. So the most important thing to remember is also the simplest. When thunder roars, go indoors. If you can't hear thunder at all, you're already close enough for the next bolt to find you. Do not wait for the rain to start. So lightning isn't a bolt falling from the sky. It's a circuit, and the bright part shoots up. If this changed the way you see a storm, do me one favor and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. See you there.